Hey loves, I hope you guys are in an awesome mood for this new story. Before we get started, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. Nathan and I had been together for 2 years. Not married, no kids, but we lived together in an apartment in Louisville. Not downtown Louisville, but like 20 minutes out, one of those complexes near the strip mall with the Kroger and the nail salon that's always advertising dip powder for $30. Third floor, corner unit. The elevator worked maybe half the time, so you got used to the stairs. The parking lot flooded every time it rained hard, and we had this ongoing joke about whether the maintenance guy was ever actually going to fix the drain by the dumpster. It never happened. I moved into that apartment about 3 years ago. I had been renting a room from this older lady named Greta, who was fine, but she had these specific rules about guests and noise. And I was 26 and just needed my own space. Found the apartment, signed the lease, put down the deposit. About 8 months later, I met Nathan through mutual friends at a cookout. He was funny, the kind of guy who could talk to anyone about anything. He worked in sales, so I guess that made sense, but at the time, it just felt like he was genuinely interested in me. We dated for about 6 months before he suggested moving in. At that point, he was basically at my place every night anyway, leaving his stuff everywhere, eating my food, using my Netflix. It seemed stupid for him to keep paying rent on his studio across town when he was never there. So I added him to the utilities and he started paying me half the rent every month. But here's the thing, and this is important, so pay attention. When I asked the leasing office about adding him to the lease officially, the woman at the front desk, I think her name was something like Patricia, or maybe it was Pamela, she told me that adding someone to an existing lease required a whole new application, new credit check, new deposit calculation. It would basically be like starting over. And at the time, Nathan had some credit issues from when he was younger, a car loan he'd defaulted on and some medical debt. So we just decided to leave it. He'd pay me, I'd pay the landlord, we'd figure it out when the lease renewed. Except we never did figure it out. The lease renewed twice, and each time we just said we'd deal with it next time. His credit was supposedly getting better, but there was always some excuse, some reason to wait. And honestly, it didn't seem like a big deal. Same thing with the car. When we started dating, I had this silver Ford that was paid off but on its last legs. Transmission was going. Every time I drove over 40, the steering wheel shook. Nathan had just totaled his car a few months before we met. Some accident where he rear-ended someone at a red light. Insurance paid out but barely covered what he owed on the loan. So when I finally got a new car, a Mazda CX-5 that I financed through my credit union, it just made sense for me to be the only one on the title. His insurance rates would have been insane with that accident on his record. We agreed he'd help with the payments, which he did for a while, and he drove it probably more than I did. But it was my car, my name, my loan. The bank accounts were the same story. We never combined finances officially. I had my accounts from before we met, and he had his, which apparently were a mess, and we just kept it that way. He'd Venmo me his half of stuff, sometimes late, sometimes short, but it always eventually worked out. I handled the bills, kept everything organized. He said he appreciated that I was good with money since he wasn't. Looking back now, I can see how that whole setup was convenient for him in ways I didn't fully clock at the time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So 2 weeks ago, we had our 2-year anniversary. Nathan made reservations at this Italian place downtown, one of those spots with the white tablecloths and the candles and the bread basket that comes with 3 different kinds of oil. It wasn't crazy expensive, but it was nice. The kind of place you go for birthdays and anniversaries. I wore this green dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion, did my hair, actually put on real makeup instead of just mascara and concealer. I was excited. I thought we were celebrating. We got there around 7, sat down, ordered drinks, did the whole thing where you look at the menu and discuss what you might split. Normal stuff. He seemed a little distracted, checking his phone more than usual, but I figured he was just tired from work. He'd been working late a lot the past few months. At least that's what he told me. About 20 minutes into dinner, right after the appetizers came out, Nathan put his fork down. He had this weird look on his face, almost like he was psyching himself up for something. I asked if he was okay, and that's when he stood up. Not like stood up to go to the bathroom. Stood up like he wanted everyone to see him. And he started talking in this voice that was way too loud for a restaurant. He said he couldn't do this anymore, that I was boring, that I had let myself go, that he deserved better, that he had wasted the best years of his life on someone who couldn't even keep a man interested. He said I had no ambition, no spark, that being with me was like dating a piece of furniture. I just sat there. I couldn't move. People at other tables were staring. This couple near the window literally stopped mid-bite to watch. The waiter froze about 10 feet away holding someone else's entree. Then Nathan threw some cash on the table, maybe $60 or $80, and said dinner was on him. Consider it a goodbye gift. And he walked toward the door. But he didn't walk out alone. There was a woman at the bar, dark hair, red dress, sitting there like she'd been waiting. And Nathan walked right up to her, put his arm around her waist, and they left together. Just like that. Like it was rehearsed. Like I was nothing. I sat there for probably 5 minutes without moving. The waiter eventually came over and asked if I was okay, and I just nodded because I didn't trust my voice. People were still looking, whispering. Some woman at the next table actually said out loud, "Well, that was dramatic," like she was commenting on a TV show. I looked at the cash he'd thrown down. It wasn't even enough to cover the full bill with tip, so I paid the rest. I ate my bruschetta. I drank my wine. I asked the waiter to box up the entrees I'd already ordered because I wasn't about to let that food go to waste. And then I drove home, in my car, to my apartment. When I got home, I just stood in the living room looking at all his stuff. His gaming setup in the corner, his clothes in the bedroom closet, his stupid protein powder containers lined up on the kitchen counter. And I kept thinking about what he'd said, that I'd let myself go, that I was boring, that I couldn't keep a man interested. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I have friends, I have hobbies, I read actual books and not just whatever book talk is pushing. I've been told I'm pretty my whole life and maybe that shouldn't matter, but it does in this context because what the hell was he even talking about? The next few days were a blur of emotions. I went between being furious and being devastated and being weirdly numb. My best friend Anna came over the night after it happened and I told her everything. She kept asking if I wanted her to do something about it. She has a temper. I said no, not yet. I needed to think. Nathan didn't come home that night, or the next night, or the night after that. He texted me once, the day after the restaurant, saying he'd be by to get his stuff soon. Like it was casual. Like he'd just been staying at a friend's house for the weekend. I didn't respond. A week went by, he texted again asking when would be a good time to come by. I still didn't respond. Then he started calling. At first, once a day, then more. I let every single one go to voicemail. His messages started friendly and fake. All, hey, can we talk about this like adults? And then got more annoyed as days passed. One voicemail, he actually had the nerve to ask if I was being childish about this. Childish. After what he did to me in front of an entire restaurant. My family knows now. My mom called after Anna told her sister, who told my cousin who told her, which is how information travels in my family apparently. Mom was furious. She never liked Nathan to begin with, said he was too smooth, too quick with the compliments. She asked what I was going to do about the apartment and the car and everything else, and when I explained the situation, that everything was already in my name, she got real quiet and then just said, well, that one word told me everything I needed to know about how my mom was feeling. What Nathan doesn't seem to understand yet is that I'm not just some girl he can humiliate and walk away from. Everything we built over 2 years, the apartment, the car, the furniture, the joint bills, all of it runs through me. My name is on the lease. My name is on the car title. My credit is what got us the apartment in the first place because his was trash. I never thought about it as leverage before. It was just logistics. But now it's starting to feel like something else entirely. Anna keeps asking me what my plan is. I keep telling her I'm working on it. The truth is I don't have a plan yet. Part of me wants to change the locks tomorrow and throw all his stuff off the balcony. Another part wants to be calm and rational and handle this the right way. And a third part, a small petty part that I'm not proud of, wants him to come crawling back so I can watch him realize exactly how badly he messed up. Because here's what I've started to piece together over the past 2 weeks. Those late nights at work that started a few months ago, the ones I never questioned because I trusted him. The way he'd been distant sometimes, picking fights over nothing, criticizing little things I did. The gym membership he suddenly got even though he never worked out before. The new cologne. The way he started putting his phone face down whenever I walked by. I don't know who that woman at the bar is. I don't know how long this was going on, but I know enough to understand that what happened at that restaurant wasn't some spontaneous breakdown. That was planned. He wanted an audience. He wanted to humiliate me publicly as his exit strategy. What he didn't plan for was the fact that when he walked out that door, he walked away from literally everything he has. The apartment, the car, his stuff that's still sitting exactly where he left it. The utilities he's been paying half of that are now completely my responsibility, but also completely my control. The address he probably still has on his license and all his mail. I don't know what happens next. He's gonna have to come back eventually. He's gonna have to face me. And when he does, I'm going to be ready. What I'm not gonna do is make this easy for him. I need to figure out the legal stuff, like whether I can just throw his stuff out or if I have to give him formal notice or whatever. Anna thinks I should post updates here as everything unfolds. She says people will want to know what happens. I don't know about that, but it does help to write it all out. Makes it feel more real somehow. Anyway, that's where I'm at. 2 weeks post-humiliation, still processing, still angry, still living in an apartment full of a man's belongings who threw money on a table and called me boring in front of strangers. If anyone has advice on what to do next, I'm all ears. Especially the legal stuff about his belongings. I looked it up online, but I'm getting conflicting information and I really don't want to mess this up. We'll update when there's more to tell, because there will definitely be more. So let me get this straight. This man has no lease, no car title, no credit, and he stood up and said, "She's the boring one? You are a tenant in your own relationship, my guy. You are renting your whole life from this woman." Like he really rehearsed this. He practiced this in the mirror, picked out the restaurant, called up Red Dress Girl, probably had a whole group chat hyping him up like, "Yeah bro, do it, King, leave her." And not one of them said, "Hey, maybe don't blow up the only roof you have over your head." Honestly, the best part is her mom just going, "Well," because that woman did the math in her head in about 3 seconds and realized her daughter accidentally won. First update, First of all, thank you to everyone who commented and messaged me. Some of you gave really solid advice about the legal stuff with his belongings, and I did some research and talked to a few people, and basically in Kentucky, I have to give him reasonable opportunity to collect his property, but I don't have to make it convenient for him. I also don't have to let him inside the apartment if I don't want to. I can put his stuff in the parking lot during an agreed upon time, and that counts as giving him access, which is exactly what I planned to do. But here's where things got complicated. About 4 days after my original post, Nathan showed up at the apartment. No warning, no text asking if it was okay. Just showed up around 6 in the evening while I was making dinner. I heard the key in the lock, and for a second I forgot that I hadn't changed the locks yet. That was on my list, but I kept putting it off because I wasn't sure about the legality of it since his name isn't on the lease, but he'd been living there and I didn't want to do anything that could come back on me later. So the door opens and there he is, standing in the doorway like he still lives there, like nothing happened. He had this look on his face like he was expecting me to be crying in a corner somewhere waiting for him to come back. I was standing in the kitchen holding a wooden spoon covered in tomato sauce and I just stared at him. Neither of us said anything for probably 10 seconds. Then he walked in and closed the door behind him and started looking around like he was taking inventory. Asked where his PlayStation was because it wasn't in the living room anymore. I told him it was in a box in the hall closet along with everything else of his that I'd packed up over the past week. He got this annoyed look and asked why I packed his stuff up like he was already moved out. And I couldn't help it, I actually laughed. Not a funny laugh. More like a what planet are you living on laugh. I reminded him that he stood up in a restaurant and told everyone I was boring and had let myself go and then walked out with another woman. What exactly did he think was going to happen after that? He started going on about how I was being dramatic and that we needed to talk about this, like adults. That word again, adults. Like I was the one who made a public spectacle out of ending a relationship. Like I was the one who planned a humiliation dinner with a side piece waiting at the bar. I put the spoon down because I didn't trust myself not to throw it at him. I asked him what exactly he wanted to talk about. Was he going to explain why he did what he did? Was he going to tell me who that woman was? Was he going to apologize for embarrassing me in front of an entire restaurant full of strangers who watched him call me boring and say I couldn't keep a man interested? And here's the thing that still makes me want to scream. He actually tried to justify it. He said that I had been distant, that I'd been putting work first, that he felt like he was living with a roommate instead of a girlfriend, that he tried to talk to me about it multiple times and I never listened, that he felt invisible in his own relationship. I asked him when. When did he try to talk to me? Because I don't remember a single conversation where he sat me down and said he was unhappy. I remember him complaining about dinner choices. I remember him being annoyed when I wanted to stay in on Friday nights instead of going out. I remember him making comments about how I never dressed up anymore when we were just sitting at home watching TV. But an actual adult conversation about our relationship and his needs and what was wrong, that never happened. He said I should have noticed, that I should have seen he was pulling away, that it wasn't his job to spell everything out for me. So I asked him about the woman. How long had that been going on? He got quiet for a second and then said it wasn't like that she was just a friend, that they'd been talking for a few months but nothing physical happened until after he decided things were over with me. I asked him if he expected me to believe that. A few months of talking to another woman, emotional affair at minimum, and he conveniently decided things were over right before he started sleeping with her. How stupid did he think I was? He said I was twisting his words, that he wasn't the bad guy here, that relationships end, and sometimes it's messy, and he was sorry about how it happened, but not sorry that it happened, that he deserved to be happy. That's when I told him to get his stuff and get out. He started arguing about what was his. The TV in the living room, he said he'd paid for half of it. I told him I paid for it on my credit card and he gave me cash a week later that didn't even cover half. He tried to claim the couch. I showed him the receipt I'd saved in my email. He wanted the kitchen table. I reminded him that was there before he moved in. Every single thing in that apartment was either mine originally or I had paid for it in a traceable way. He'd paid rent and utilities in cash and Venmo. That was it. His contribution to our shared life was half the bills and nothing else. He grabbed the boxes I'd packed from the hall closet. His clothes, his gaming stuff, some books he never read, a few random items I'd thrown in there just to get them out of my sight. He kept looking around like there should be more, and there wasn't. Then he asked about the car. I said, what about it? He said he needed it. He'd been using his friend's car the past 2 weeks, but he couldn't keep doing that. We'd been sharing the Mazda, so technically it was half his. I told him the car was in my name. The loan was in my name. The insurance was in my name. He'd contributed to payments for maybe 8 months and then got spotty about it. There was no technically about it. That was my car. He tried to argue that he'd put thousands into it over 2 years. I asked him if he had any receipts, any Venmo records marked as car payment, any proof at all. He didn't. He said this wasn't fair, that I was being petty, that he contributed to our life together and I was acting like none of that mattered. And that's when I finally said what I'd been holding in for 2 weeks. I told him that he humiliated me in public, that he planned it, that he had another woman waiting for him like I was some kind of obstacle to get rid of, that he called me boring and said I let myself go in front of people who were just trying to eat their dinner, that he made me a spectacle, a punchline, and now he was standing in my apartment complaining about what's fair. He went quiet for a minute. Then he said that maybe he shouldn't have done it that way, that he got caught up in the moment, that he'd been drinking before dinner and it all came out wrong. I asked him if he wanted applause for that almost apology, because it sounded like he was sorry he got messy, not sorry he hurt me. He didn't have anything to say to that. He took his boxes and left. 3 trips down to a car that wasn't his, loading up his stuff while I watched from the balcony. When he was done, he looked up at me and asked if we could talk again sometime when things calmed down. Like we were going to be friends after this. Like I was just going to move past it and wish him well. I went back inside without answering. That night, Anna came over with wine and we went through everything. She kept saying she was proud of me for not backing down, that a lot of people would have crumbled when he started with the justifications. But I didn't feel proud. I felt exhausted and angry and weirdly sad, which I hated admitting. Because here's the thing that nobody talks about. Even when someone treats you badly, even when they humiliate you and betray you, there are still parts of the relationship that were real. 2 years of inside jokes and lazy Sunday mornings and road trips to nowhere. 2 years of someone knowing how I take my coffee and what shows I'm watching and which side of the bed I sleep on. That doesn't just disappear because he turned out to be a terrible person. You still have to grieve it. And that part sucks. My mom called me the day after Nathan came for his stuff. She'd heard through the family grapevine that he'd been by. I told her what happened, and she listened without interrupting, which is rare for her. When I finished, she asked me how I was really doing. Not the surface answer, but the real one. I told her I didn't know. Some moments I felt strong. Other moments I felt like crying in the shower for an hour. Mostly I just felt tired. She told me that was normal, that getting over someone isn't linear, that I'd have good days and bad days, and eventually the good days would outnumber the bad ones. But she also said something that stuck with me. She said that the way someone leaves tells you everything about who they really are. That Nathan could have broken up with me privately, respectfully, like a person with basic decency. Instead, he chose to make it a show. That's not about me. That's about him needing an audience for his own ego. I've been thinking about that a lot. A few days later, Nathan started texting again. Not apologetic texts. More like negotiation texts. He wanted to discuss splitting costs on things we'd bought together. He wanted to talk about the car situation again. He kept saying we needed to be reasonable about this. I told him there was nothing to discuss. The car was mine. The apartment was mine. Everything in it was mine or purchased by me. He'd contributed rent and utilities, and that contribution ended when he walked out. If he wanted to take me to small claims court over the TV, he was welcome to try. He said I was being vindictive, that this wasn't who he thought I was, that I'd changed. I told him that humiliating your girlfriend in public wasn't who I thought he was either, so I guess we were both learning new things about each other. He said the relationship hadn't been good for a while, and I knew that I was holding on to something that was already dead, that he'd been unhappy for months, and I didn't care enough to notice. I asked him why he didn't just break up with me then, if he was so unhappy, if everything was so bad, why the public scene, why the other woman, why any of it. He said he didn't know, that it just happened, that he met someone who made him feel alive again and things escalated. I told him that things don't just happen. He made choices. Every day he chose to text that woman instead of talking to me. Every day he chose to lie about where he was. Every day he chose to build something with someone else while pretending everything was fine at home. And then he chose to humiliate me instead of having one honest conversation. He said I was making him the villain when the relationship was already falling apart. I told him he made himself the villain when he threw money on a table and called me boring in front of 50 people. He stopped responding after that. For 3 days, I didn't hear from him. I started to think maybe it was actually over. Maybe he'd moved on with his new woman and I could just heal in peace. Then on Tuesday, I was leaving for work in the morning and I saw his car in the parking lot. Not the friend's car he'd been borrowing. A different car. An older Chevrolet with a dent in the rear bumper. He was sitting in the driver's seat just staring at the building. I walked to my car pretending I didn't see him. But when I started backing out, he got out of his car and waved me down. I could have just kept driving. Part of me wanted to. But another part needed to know what the hell he was doing there at 7 in the morning. I rolled my window down and asked what he wanted. He said the situation with the other woman wasn't working out. That she wasn't who he thought she was. That he'd made a mistake. I asked what that had to do with me. He said he was staying with his friend Hunter, but it was temporary. That he didn't have anywhere permanent to go. That his credit was still bad and he couldn't get approved for an apartment on his own. That he needed time to figure things out. I asked him again what that had to do with me. He said maybe we could talk about him staying at the apartment. Just temporarily. Just until he got on his feet. He'd sleep on the couch. He'd give me space. We wouldn't even have to interact. I literally laughed out loud. I asked if he was serious. If he really thought after everything he did I was going to let him move back in. He said I was the only one who could help him right now. That his family wasn't an option because of reasons he didn't want to get into. That Hunter's place was tiny and he was already wearing out his welcome. That he had nowhere else to go. I told him that sounded like a him problem. He grabbed the edge of my window, not aggressively, but like he was trying to keep me from leaving. He said please. That he knew he messed up. That he was sorry about the restaurant. Really sorry. He shouldn't have done it like that. That he was spiraling and made bad choices. That the woman, her name is Miranda apparently, she wasn't what he expected and things fell apart fast. I asked him what he expected me to feel about that. Sympathy, satisfaction, because I didn't feel either. I felt nothing. He said he just needed a few weeks, a month at most. He'd save up, find a place, get out of my hair. He wouldn't ask for anything else. I told him no. He kept going, said we'd been together 2 years and that had to mean something, that I couldn't just throw him away like garbage. I reminded him that he's the one who threw us away, in a restaurant, with an audience, while calling me boring. He finally let go of my window. He looked like he was about to cry, which honestly was jarring because I'd never seen Nathan cry in 2 years together. He said he didn't know what he was going to do, that he really was sleeping in his car some nights because Hunter's couch wasn't always available, that everything had fallen apart so fast. I told him I was going to be late for work, and I drove away. I texted Anna from the parking lot at work, told her what happened. She responded with 17 angry emojis, and then said I should consider getting a restraining order if he kept showing up like that. I don't think it's that serious yet. But I did call the leasing office that afternoon and finally got them to change my locks. Told them my ex-boyfriend had a key and I wanted to make sure he couldn't get in. They didn't ask questions. The maintenance guy came by that evening and it was done in 20 minutes. Now I'm sitting here wondering what happens next. Nathan knows where I work. He knows my routine. He's clearly not doing well and I don't know if that makes him more likely to give up or more likely to keep pushing. What I do know is that I'm not letting him back in. Not into the apartment. Not into my life. He made his choice in front of everyone at that restaurant. Now he gets to live with it. I'll update again when there's more to tell. Based on how things are going, I don't think I'll have to wait long. She wasn't who he thought she was. Oh, so Miranda got tired of you too? In 2 weeks? Babe, that's gotta be a record. That's speed run getting dumped. And now he's outside her apartment at 7 a.m. in a busted Chevy with a dent asking to sleep on the couch. That is the fastest fall from grace I have ever seen in my life. You left like you were James Bond and came back like you're applying for a homeless shelter run by your ex. No, sir. We were together 2 years. That has to mean something. It did mean something. It meant you had a free apartment, a free car, and a woman handling your whole life. And you blew it up for a vibe. For a moment. For Miranda, who lasted shorter than a free trial. Last update. Okay, so this is probably my last update, and honestly, it's a good one. Like a really good one. The kind where you finally get to see everything come full circle. After my last post, Nathan kept showing up in the parking lot. Not every day, but enough that I started expecting it. His car in the visitor section when I left for work. His car there when I came home. He never tried my door again after I changed the locks, but he'd just sit there watching the building like a sad, kicked puppy. I walked past him every single time like he was furniture. It clearly drove him insane because the texts kept coming. Can we please talk? Just 5 minutes. I need to explain. I left every single one on read. Then about a week ago, I was coming home around 9 after dinner with Anna. Cold night, that annoying drizzly rain that soaks through everything. I pulled into my spot and there was Nathan's car. But this time he jumped out immediately and came right at me before I could get to the stairs. He looked bad. Same hoodie I'd seen him in multiple times now. Wrinkled and stained, hair greasy, that desperate energy radiating off him. He started talking fast, words tumbling over each other. Said Hunter kicked him out for real this time. Not just hints about overstaying his welcome, but an actual get-out conversation. Apparently Hunter's girlfriend had enough of Nathan sleeping on their couch and eating their food and contributing nothing. She gave Hunter an ultimatum, and Hunter chose her. Which, like, fair. But here's where it gets good. I asked what happened with Miranda, the woman worth blowing up his entire life for. The one waiting at the bar in her red dress like some kind of prize. Turns out Miranda had expectations. Big ones. She thought Nathan had money. She thought he had his own apartment. She thought the car he was driving was actually his car. Because apparently when they were talking those months before the restaurant incident, Nathan had been playing himself up, telling her he was doing great, making himself sound like a catch instead of a guy with bad credit living in his girlfriend's apartment driving his girlfriend's car. So when they left the restaurant that night and she found out he was basically moving in with her, not the other way around, things got weird fast. She let him stay at her place for like 2 weeks and then started asking when he was getting his own spot. He kept making excuses, she kept pushing. Then she found out about the car, that he didn't have one anymore because the Mazda was mine. She'd been assuming he was just leaving it at my place to avoid drama and would get it eventually. When she realized he had no car, no apartment, no savings, and no plan, she lost it. He told me they had this huge fight where she called him a liar and a user, said she didn't sign up to be someone's mommy, said he'd painted this picture of himself that was complete fantasy and she felt tricked. I actually laughed out loud at that part. In the rain, couldn't help it. The woman he left me for felt tricked by him, the same way I felt tricked. He really just does this to everyone apparently. He didn't appreciate my laughing. Got all defensive saying it wasn't the same thing and I didn't understand the situation. I told him it sounded exactly the same. He pretended to be something he wasn't, and when reality showed up, the woman got pissed. Classic Nathan. He kept going with the story. After Miranda kicked him out, he went to Hunter's. Hunter's a guy he's known since college, one of those friendships that survives on occasional hangouts and shared history. Hunter let him crash on the couch, but his apartment is tiny, like studio tiny, and his girlfriend basically lives there too. At first, they tried to make it work. Nathan was supposed to be there a week max while he found a room to rent or something. But his credit is trash, so nobody would approve him for anything. And he burned through what little money he had buying stuff for Miranda, trying to keep her happy. New restaurants, concert tickets, some necklace she mentioned wanting, all while sleeping on her couch and pretending he was about to get his own place any day now. So a week at Hunter's turned into 2 weeks, turned into 3 weeks, and suddenly Hunter's girlfriend is making comments about how long this temporary situation is lasting. Nathan said they started fighting about him constantly. Finally, 3 days ago, Hunter sat him down and said he had to go, that he was choosing his relationship over their friendship, and Nathan needed to figure something else out. Nathan's been sleeping in his car since then. The old Chevrolet he bought cheap off some guy after everything fell apart, except now it's breaking down too. Something with a transmission. He said it stalls at every stop sign and he's terrified it's going to die completely and then he'll really have nothing. I asked if he'd called his family. He said his mom told him this was his own fault and she wasn't bailing him out. His dad hasn't talked to him in years over some old drama. His sister lives in Oregon and made it clear she wasn't interested in his problems. So here he was, sleeping in a failing car, no money, no support system, no one willing to help. And he was standing in front of the apartment that used to be his home asking the woman he publicly humiliated if she'd give him another chance. I asked him straight up what he expected from me right now. Was I supposed to feel bad? Was I supposed to let him back in because his choices blew up in his face? He said he wasn't expecting anything. He just wanted me to know he was sorry. That what he did at the restaurant was the worst decision he'd ever made. That Miranda had actually suggested doing it that way, making it public and dramatic so I'd be too embarrassed to fight back. She said it would be cleaner. She said I'd move on faster if it was humiliating because I'd want to forget it ever happened. I asked him if he realized how that sounded, that he planned his breakup strategy with his affair partner to maximize my embarrassment. He said the boring comment specifically was Miranda's phrase. She'd asked him what was wrong with me, why he wanted to leave, and he didn't have a good answer. So she started feeding him lines. She's boring. She's let herself go. She doesn't appreciate you. And he repeated them because it was easier than admitting he was just chasing something shiny and new. I told him that's exactly what I figured, that he needed me to be the villain so he could feel like the hero. He nodded, said that was it exactly. And now he could see how stupid it all was. I let the silence hang for a minute. Rain coming down, him standing there destroyed, me completely dry under the building overhang. Then I told him I heard his apology. I believed he meant it, but that didn't change anything. He made his choice in front of 50 strangers. He threw money on the table and called me a goodbye gift. Now he gets to live with what's left. He asked if there was any chance, any possibility, even just being friends someday. I told him no, not because I was being petty, but because I genuinely didn't want him in my life. He showed me who he was. I believed him. He stood there for another minute. Then he walked back to his broken Chevrolet, got in, and drove away. The car stalled twice before finally starting. I went upstairs to my apartment, made myself tea, sat on my couch surrounded by everything that's mine. 3 months ago, he threw $60 on a table and called it a goodbye gift. Now he's sleeping in a car that barely runs and I've got everything. I don't feel bad about it, not even a little. He spent money he didn't have buying Miranda concert tickets and a necklace while sleeping on her couch. This man learned nothing. He just did the exact same thing again. Found a woman, moved in, pretended to be something he's not, and got kicked out when she realized. He's not a boyfriend. He's a parasite with a rotation. And Miranda was the one who wrote his breakup speech? She's boring. She's let herself go. Those were her lines? So he couldn't even dump someone original. He got scripted by the other woman. He was basically a puppet with bad credit and a borrowed car. Also, Hunter's girlfriend said get him out, and Hunter chose her. Miranda said get your own place, and he couldn't. His own mom said figure it out yourself. That is 4 women in a row telling this man to grow up. At some point, you gotta look around and go, maybe it's me? Anyway, that's the story. Like and subscribe if you want more of these. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done if you were in her shoes? Because I already know y'all have opinions and I wanna hear every single one. Love you guys, see you in the next one.